I just would like to begin by asking, I have two others. One is coming from Beloit. I'm a little concerned he's not here. And the other may have a health issue. But if another handsome older gentleman walks in, forgive me if I have him join the crowd here, join the group. Dale, where did you grow up in town during grade school and middle school?
3 miles north of Hampshire, on a farm.
On the farm, okay. And Andy?
We moved out of Chicago in 1935 and settled on what was an abandoned farmstead about 4 miles west from here, which meant that we didn't go to town school. We went to the last of the one-room schools, Water School, District 40, and that was completely separate from the Hampshire school system at that time.
At that time. And John, you grew up?
I was born in Chicago, like Andy. We moved out to Burlington in 1939. Lived in Burlington for 2 years. Dad was the Ford dealer. And when he moved there, he had 6 months to live. He had lead poisoning from paint, not from bullets, although he did service Al Capone's cars, etc. And we moved here January 1st, 1943, on top of the dealership. Dad bought this store from High Pockets, W.C. Boyd. And so, like I say, we lived here from 1943, January 1st on. And that's my history.
Okay, well, that's the last of my questions. I'm just going to encourage the three of you to talk about old times and how you knew each other and what was happening in the town back then.
You know, you was kicking off.
You're the kicker.
I didn't want to hog this up, because I wasn't the only guy that grew up here. You know, we all circulated.
When you lived 3 miles north of town, at that time you didn't know nobody in town.
Yeah, well, he was supposed to be my cousin. I didn't know that. I didn't find out until on my dad's deathbed. But anyway, Hampshire. He came into town, 1940, population 500. Burlington was 250. That's where we moved from. We moved from Burlington. We didn't have running water, indoor plumbing. And the only water we had was palatable water from the cistern. You know, we moved to Hampshire. We had indoor plumbing. Man, we were alive. We had train service every day into Chicago. 7:30 in the morning, we're back at 7:30 at night. But we rocked and rolled. I mean, Hampshire was alive. I'm just going to give you some items here. In 1950, our population was 750, by the way. But what made Hampshire so great, and it was great, very patriotic. The 40s and the 50s, you would say, are war years. December 7th, 41, Pearl Harbor. The year we graduated, I graduated from high school, Korea. Was at the end of middle of June. You were there. I almost ended up there 3 times, but I didn't. I ended up in Germany instead. But anyway, those were the war years. And boy, did this town flourish. And what do I mean by that? And I don't want to hog up things here now, but it was very patriotic. In World War II, in the 40s, our population was 500. But you know how many guys and gals we had in service? And it's on that wooden board. I think it's up the park now.
Did you get that picture?
I don't know, I got it someplace.
Somebody I gave it.
Yeah, somebody gave it to me, I think. I don't know where the kids put it. But we had 135 guys and gals in the service in World War II. Out of 500 in the town, but that was Hampshire Township. Yeah. But that's quite an item, you know, very patriotic. But when you came to town, I remember coming from Burlington. Dad said, boy, this is a great town. And on Friday night and Saturday night, the stores were open. And in the 40s, by the way, were the greatest generation. And Ambrose, your dad was one of them. Ambrose, senior. My dad taught the world of him, and he was one of the first guys in the concentration camps. I was there right after him, but anyway. We had a meat market, dry market, 5 grocery stores, 4 taverns, 2 hardware stores, 2 implement dealers, 2 and 3 car dealerships. There was a Ford dealership, George Bousy Simon, my dad, and then Jackie, your dad, didn't he have Crossley?
Right.
First appliance store too in Hampshire. Yeah, right there, you're looking at the gal right there. Okay. She used to come to Burlington. We played together right next door at the Prices. Remember those days? Okay, let's see. 2 barber shops, 3 hairdressers. We had the feed mill with Bay, cattle yards. We had Hartman and Son dairy cattle, and we had Harry Wertheimer in the beef cattle. And you could hear the cows mooing all night long. We had an undertaker, Al Frederick. His son ran the restaurant. I got my first steak I ever ate in my life right at Ron Frederick's restaurant. We had churches, very church-going town, the Methodist Church, the Lutheran Church, the Evangelical Church, and the Catholic Church. And we used to make fun of it, the Hampshire rag. And I'll tell you, there was nothing like it when you were overseas and you get that, you know. And I'll tell you, we knew what was going on, but we felt at home. And I'll never forget that. That's my wife when we got engaged. There. She was a cowgirl from Washington State. If it wasn't for the Army, I wouldn't have met her. But anyway, let's see. We had the restaurant I mentioned, and the dairy cattle, and I'll tell you what made this town was bigger than Huntley, believe it or not. And our milk factory, we had about 160, 190 different dairy farms. Milk was coming in from Huntley, Marengo, Burlington, even though Burlington did have a milk factory, Shires. But we had the milk, and Holland and Huntley had a milk factory, but it was all second grade milk for cheese. It was usually a cheese factory, if I remember right. Right? You stop me if I'm wrong. Grew up with these guys, and Dale went through hell, by the way, in the Korean War. You got to give him credit for it. Him and Dave Walker. Let's see here, what else? Manufacturing. We had Sisal-Craft. That was located where the auto parts store was prior to moving out to the corner. And they were going into the 30s when we were shipping Lend-Lease to Britain and Russia. They used that paper to cover weapons, artillery, tanks, and so forth. That went day and night, Sisal-Craft. We had Gordon. And we had JB Intermediate Company, the canning factory. And it was big. It was really big. As I said, the milk factory. And of course, that canning factory, I still remember Johnny Lang. I don't know if you remember Johnny Lang. Ewald Coppin, remember him? He ran the farms. And let's see here. Missing somebody here. Ewald Coppin. And Pete Crary, who was our mayor. That was your predecessor, by the way. There. And he was the mayor. He was the head of the canning factory. And he was the one that installed our bowling alley. Was it 45? Just before the war ended. That was big in our day. But, and of course, I still remember, I was peddling the papers. And I peddled the papers for the drugstore, Wilcox Drugs. Great drugstore, by the way, George Wilcox. And I peddled the was big, I didn't know how big. A few years ago, when I demolished the building on the corner where Zing's Tavern was, and we got demolishing, and we started hitting the concrete, and I found the biggest switchboard system I've seen in my life. I didn't know what went on. I wondered where my dad would disappear. And Walter Wilkins. Did you know Walter Wilkins? Yeah, he was in World War I with Dave. He was a sharpshooter. He taught me how to shoot, by the way. And, he was a character. Well, I wondered why they all disappeared, and then all of a sudden they appeared. Yeah. But anyway, I remember peddling papers one morning. It was cold. The innkeepers were always good to me. I was always early with the papers, 6:30, and I remember coming into the restaurant, Ron Frederick's restaurant, and I don't know who ran it after Ron, but anyway, he said, we haven't got enough people to run this canning factory. And I forget who the farmer was. I've tried to think for weeks. Anyway, the guy said, well, why don't you get some German POWs? They've got a real influx of them, and get them to work. And we didn't know it, in about 3 or 4 weeks, a stockade started going up on Keys Avenue, and it wasn't, with April or May, all these trucks of deuce and a halves started rolling in with German POWs. They're all members of the Africa Corps. And I owe it to them. This one guy, Hans Finkel, he could speak better English than I could. And I would have to censor the papers, anything with murder in Chicago and so forth. I had to clip it out. So I'm in the PX one day and he says, Johann, he says, your literacy is terrible. He said, you are kaput. And he said, we changed it. So he taught me how to punctuate and spell. And I really owe it to him. And at the same time, he said, Johann, I have to keep these boys busy. And he says, we need material. And he said, I need carving knives, I need paint and brushes, varnish, and so forth. I said, well, Hans, I can't give you that. I said, carving knife? He said, John, Johann, look up at the counter. What do you see? I said, well, straight razors. I said, okay. So what I would do, I would bring in these wood carving materials, and then I would walk out with snuff, chewing tobacco, cigars. I had a black market going on. Had to sell it. Everything was fine until I was late for school, and a sister caught me with all the tobacco. But anyway, that POW camp was big here in Hampshire for 2 years, and I got lessons on democracy and so forth. So all that went on, and like I say, I should bring up the fact we had a lot going on as far as communication. I mentioned the railroad and trucking. We had White Brothers. Workman was supposed to be here. His dad and his brother ran the White Brothers trucking. We had Ummenstock Brothers trucking. And then, Billy, we had your dad. He kept us in communication with Chicago. You don't know how much that guy did for us. We appreciate it. His dad ran Hampshire Motor Service. And then we had the milk caller, John Lenshaw, Tuffy Ummenstock, Chubb Chapman, and so forth. Like I say, we really rocked and rolled. And it was great to grow up with these guys. The world's greatest generation, all these guys coming back, we had a lot of heroes. And we had a lot going on. We didn't realize how good us kids had it. But one time, I hope I'm not boring you. One day, I'm out in front of the gas pump sweeping, and all of a sudden, 3 P-51 Mustangs buzzed the city. 1,000 foot high. You remember that? Man, the town was shook. I'll never forget it. And so they came through town from the south, came up to the north, circled, came back again.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Oh, God. And you remember what happened, the outcome of that?
No,
It was terrible.
that was Medine.
Alan Modine,
Yeah.
that was Alan. Yeah. And you know what they did? Anybody here related to the Bikers? Good. I shouldn't say it.
To who, John, did you say?
Huh?
Related to what
The
family?
Bikers, B-O-T-C-H-E-R. They were related to the Greavies,
Oh, okay.
well, they reported. And Alan got switched to the hump. Do you know what the hump was? In World War II.
Yeah.
That was the route from India, China, Burma, over there, Himalayas.
That's where we got killed.
They got killed, and they never did find him.
Yeah, direct hit from artillery.
Yeah. Yeah, remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they never did find him. So we can blame the biker. I shouldn't say that. He was a great guy. And Allie, his dad, was a great guy. I know him and my dad would talk a lot.
You know, the farm right out there.
Yeah. That's right. So he was a great guy. So that was one of the happenings. The other happening that we have, you know, I live in Sleepy Hollow, and but I feel I have a kinship to Hampshire, and I'll tell you the reason why. If it weren't for the marriage of Floyd Felice and Jackie Gerber, there wouldn't be a Sleepy Hollow and Lyle Lawson. Yeah. Floyd Felice married Jackie Gerber in '44.
She was a local girl.
She was a sister to what was
Roger.
he? Yeah, that's right. And he went in there. He was a pharmacist at Duchaj. Remember that? And after the wedding, I was an altar boy at the Catholic Church. Got a $5 tip. Wait a minute, this guy came from. And after the wedding, they came out of the church, and they had Roman candles. Evidently, they were in the fire business of some kind. I don't know what kind of business they were. That's beside the point. Anyway, they shot up these Roman candles, and the German POWs rushed the fence. They had a heck of a time. That was something else. Don't forget what. They were firing shots in the air to stop them. Well, the Germans thought they were being attacked. So anyway, that happened. That was, and of course, we had the toy factory, took over after the Caddy factory left, you know. Hampshire used to be known for the 4th of July parades. That was something the troops would come to Camp Grant. You know, that was always something to see. Another big happening was when Rivers got the chicken plucking machine. That was really something. The Catholic Church used to put on their big chicken dinners, you know, and they got that chicken plucking machine just before the one. And that was something. Put the chicken right in there. It didn't take much to make us enjoy that. Like I said, the milk factory was big. We shipped milk to Morton's in Chicago, Hunter Dairy, and Swift and Company used condensed milk. Harold Leslie was running that part. And they used the condensed milk to make ice cream and so forth. But we had two of the greatest guys working there. It was Walter Krause and Brandon, and Donnie Kerner and Chick Chapman. Great guys. Okay, so mentioned such a thing. And then, like I said, we had a great drugstore, 4 gas stations, you know, and a bowling alley. And the one thing I want to mention, we had 2 of the greatest electricians ever. And Melanie, your dad was one of the greatest electricians Dad said he's ever seen. Right? Remember that?
You talking to me?
No, I'm
Oh,
talking about
yes.
Mr. Peterson back in the back place. You're not saying anything, but he was the greatest. And there's nothing he couldn't do. He kept that canning factory rolling.
Okay. He could do anything.
He could do anything.
So
He had a
Dwight, I
mind.
remember Dwight coming home from the service and he would do a lot of electrical work too on the farm. Yeah,
He was great.
yeah.
So anyway, we were blessed. We didn't know how well off we were until we got out in life ourselves. And let's see here, what else did I say? Mention the buzzing in town. Floyd Police getting married, POW camp, toy factory, and so forth. 4th of July parade, Second Park Community. Oh, the baseball dinners. You remember the baseball dinners? That was big. You know how they were. You know, you sign up for the American League or the National League, and then it was always at the Catholic Church, you know, and then the winner of the World Series, whoever signed up for that league, they paid for the other league members. That was big. And the gambling went on all night long. But we had all the sportscasters would come out here, you know, Bob Elson, they were all out here. Yeah. So a lot went on here. We were very fortunate going up there. But I'll never forget it. And you don't give it up. And it keeps you going the rest of your life. But yeah. And then, like I say, all of us were in the service back then. You know, Dale went to Engel. You know, Dave Walker, another one went to Engel. You know, and yeah. So anyway. So that's what I have to report. I think I've taken enough time.
Dale, you grew up on the farm here? What do you remember about your life then in Hampshire back then?
Well, he was talking about the POWs. We grew sweet corn and peas for the canning factory. And POWs would come out and pick sweet corn by hand. There would be 6 or 8 of them, and there'd be one guard that would come with them. And most of these POWs were glad to be out of the war. I don't know about you, but they were glad that they were out. And they'd be picking this corn, and the guard would go to sleep under a tree. These POWs would sneak up and take his gun and hide it.
That's right.
And yell, "Help!"
We were there together.
And those POWs got the biggest kick out of that. I don't know what happened to the young man on guard, but I'm sure it happened.
Your uncle was the one that was going for it too. Yeah.
I often remember that during that time, and of course, after the POWs, we had the Jamaicans here, which worked at this canning factory. And they stayed on at the canning factory farm below where we lived there, a big house, and they would walk by the house, and Mom would give them food and what have you. But when we grew up, I didn't grow up on a farm till we went there in 1933, and I was 3 years old. And of course, we had 6 horses. All machinery was pulled by horses. And John, if I'm wrong, you can tell me, but on where your dealership was, if I'm not mistaken, there was a harness building there.
That's right.
Herman's harness, because of course we needed harness. And I thought there was a picture somewhere, but I don't know where.
I don't know where it is. I saw it. You're right. Yeah,
That was before
Peterson
you
was
moved
built
to
in
town.
37.
That was before you moved to town.
Andy, what are some of your, I'm sorry, Dale.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Andy, what are some of your
Andy,
memories?
it was kind of a scarce thing in the 30s. If you saw a plane, the people would actually stop and look. But we did see a lot of them, and that was because of the system to bring them out. We didn't have a good radio system. They were told to look for railroad tracks and that. We lost quite a few pilots that way. So to get and then for a while we let the Air Force fly the mail. That supposedly was saving us money, except they dumped quite a few. So what they did to get mail from St. Louis to Chicago, they installed a series of beacons. Now, these were not little things. These went up about maybe almost 80 so feet on a concrete base, and they were about every 8 miles from St. Louis to Chicago. There was one of them around the Warrington farm. Maybe some of you remember that?
Still there.
Well, and they kept on, and then if you go to Elgin, you come to Beacon Hill, and people wonder why they call it Beacon Hill, but they do. There was a beacon, and there was several going in. It terminated at the Lindbergh Beacon on top of the Palmolive building, which was, they claimed was powerful enough you could see the shore, the Indiana shore. They made them tone it down when the other buildings got so big. They didn't really appreciate having this thing come swinging around them. But we had that, and then during the war, we had another airport at Pingree Grove. That was, those days, if you said anything that could help the war effort, you got money for it. Well, they said they were going to train all future pilots. I don't know. I think it was a boondoggle. But we had quite a few airplanes there too. And now it's a nice flat area where they grow beans. And that was partly then. I think one thing with the one-room school system, and I thought about this not when we were there, but we had at our school, which was District 40, and covered about 2 miles all the way around. We had a teacher just out of college, and her brother brought her there every morning. Now, this school had no telephone, it had no electric, and we were cut off from anything. Now I look back, what would have happened if somebody would have broke an arm, or if the fire had started? Well, anyway, my dad was one of the directors, and I remember the meeting at the house, and I thought she was a real nice girl. She's real nice. I was about in the 1st grade, and I heard Mr. Greeley telling my dad, we have to let Florence go. And my dad says, well, why? The kids like her. He says, Florence doesn't know how to bank a fire. And those kids are freezing in the morning. And apparently in college, they never taught her. So we had to get an older lady from Elgin who could bank fire. And then we got electric. But we never did have a telephone there. You know, you wonder about those poor girls who were just out of a college and put out there, and they were the sole thing. There was our thing let us go to any high school. It was quite different from being in the town high schools. And I know, Dale, you went to the big one, to Bean School. They were the biggest of the one-room schools.
Miss Baker, Evelyn Baker was teacher.
Yeah.
Teacher.
We also had a pretty nice brick school. It's still there, but that's because our original school blew down in the tornado of 22. And I've never been able to find anybody that has a picture of that school. They said it was just a little wooden shanty. There was quite a bit of difference.
Our Bean School was built by WPA.
Well, if you notice, our school was the twin of Walker's school.
Yeah.
They were built according to Geneva would give, I imagine for nothing, the blueprints. And WPA had a lot to do with those schools.
See, the WPA built that school and the one in Harmony, twin.
They also built one in Hanover Township that was called Lincoln School. And they were trying about 20 years ago to get it preserved, but that whole area now is housing and it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bean School is still there, is it not? Yeah.
It's owned by a woman now that raises dogs
You
there.
raised a dog.
Well, it's kind of an interesting thing because all of those teachers went to NIU, which at that time was the DeKalb Teachers College, and they all knew each other, and we would have wiener roasts and different, that was our whole thing, was in between the little one-room schools, Atchison School, all those, Starks, all those.
We all got together at times.
Yeah, and we had papers, newspapers, printed on a hectograph.
If it
You ever
were,
see a hectograph? Well, it looks like a sheet of jelly, and you press down with the master thing, and then the ink sinks into the jelly, and you put a sheet of paper on there, and it comes out, and you put a second sheet of paper, and you can barely read it. The third sheet of paper, you're done. And we all had these school papers. Yeah. But we didn't get to town that much. It was especially great for us at Christmas because the town had electric lights and the town had electric Christmas trees and colored lights across Main Street, which all the boonies we didn't have.
And Santa would come to town. Santa Claus would come to town.
Yeah, with a dump truck. Dump truck, and he would, Tony Herman would shovel off little bags of candy
Popcorn ball.
and popcorn balls. And but during the war, as I recall, we couldn't get citrus fruit or apples or bananas. We got hard candy. It was all molded into one piece. We didn't become so good.
Dale, what do you remember about those years?
well, like I say, I went to Bean School. The first one was my mother's mother taught at. It was an old wood school. And of course, that when the WPA, that was part of the government program to put people to work that didn't have anything to do in the 30s and 40s. And they built these schools and other municipal buildings, like you said. I went to eighth grade there. One teacher took care of 8th grade. Maybe there was a dozen kids, maybe there was 14 or 18, but she took care of all of them. We got through, seemed like we did all right.
We're still here.
We ended up in Hampshire High School, and we went to high school there for 4 years. And,
Tell me where it was, you know.
pardon?
Tell me where the high school was.
Where it was?
Where it was, yeah.
Well, like most people know, you know, it was up on the hill towards
Jackson Street.
by the park up there.
Yeah.
It was a big, pretty building, but it was ancient when we went there. It was high school students, but eventually the school system changed and they did away with it and ended up a nursing home.
And then they burnt that down.
Yeah.
Were there sports at Hampshire High when you were there?
Oh, yes.
So we had basketball.
Right now, our school is pretty, our big high school is pretty darn close to being school, isn't it?
Well, not too far, yeah.
No, that's right. We're going back there again.
One of the beans are sitting back here in the back row, pink.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
And the trouble with that, the New Hampshire High, I was teaching Sunday school in Dundee, and these kids, where do they want to go to high school? Hampshire High. They don't want to go to Jacobs, they don't want to go to Dundee, they want to go to Hampshire High.
Wow.
Makes you feel good.
pretty good staff at Hampshire High. Our principal at the time was also the mathematics teacher, and he spent more time in the office, so us people that had mathematics classes didn't have much to do. We do a lot of
Well, we made
nothing.
Yeah, we made it through that.
But,
Dale, did you take any ag?
oh,
Didn't we all?
how did we get through? Yeah.
Yeah, it was Roscoe Smith, wasn't it?
But talk about Mr. Fenzel here, is, you know, his dad opened I guess it's a Chrysler and Plymouth dealership, wasn't it?
Yeah. Took over from High Pockets.
Yeah. And I remember as a kid, couldn't be very old, on Wednesday night, the farmers would come to town because there was a free show.
Free show.
Oh, God, yeah.
And we had a big flock of chickens. And we would take the eggs into Mr. Block, and he would put them in the bag, write on a piece of paper, how many you got, this and that. Then we'd get our groceries, and he subtracted on a piece of paper. And by the time, I think by the time we are all done, he owed us about $200 or $300. But you had to know Mr. Tut's Block. He was a wonderful man. And I remember bringing 2 dozen eggs to the Fenzels at the car dealership. And your sister reminded me of that.
Oh, yeah?
She remembers that.
Okay.
Yeah.
She was the Army nurse.
You know, she was a young gal, not anymore. But we came in 2 dozens that would keep you going for a week, and then we'd come back next week and bring 2 more.
She was this year. Yeah, her husband just died.
We used to go to June and Son Grocery, And Dick Nash, when you came in, had a counter, and I always liked to go there because he had old Civil War stuff in that counter. Yeah, and then he had all the different chewing tobaccos, and they had, there must have been 100 different ones. Chewing tobaccos and different tins of tobaccos. But I used to, that was great. He had all kinds of Civil War guns and all. Yeah, yeah.
We didn't know how good we had.
That's right. Well, everybody was the same.
Yeah.
You know, it was a farming community, and the mill plant was the center of the farming community at the time. Everybody had a dairy.
Yeah.
And we have a milk hauler come and get our cans of milk. We'd have maybe a dozen or 15. He'd hoist those up on that truck and go to the next farm, have that truck pulled full, and he'd come into the plant, and each of our cans had our name on it, so we knew it.
Big number, paid right on it.
So, but
How many were in the dairies typically? How many head?
well, we had 40 cows at that time, which was pretty good dairy. Most of them were less than that. But our barn was made for 40 cows, so my dad, the banker says, get 40 cows. But
Did you milk by hand at that time?
when we first moved there, yes, we did. And my dad finally found, I don't know what kind of milk machine it was. It was Surge or whatever. But he put it up on a platform, and of course, he had no electricity at that time. So we had an old F-20 tractor, and he would put a pulley on that compressor down to the tractor and crank that thing, if it would work, and had compressor going, and then we had a way to transfer our milk. But that,
Well, how are you pumping water for cooling and all? Windmill?
windmill. Yeah.
Dangerous.
Yeah. We didn't know electricity till in the I'd say 35 or 6, somewhere in there.
We didn't get it till 42.
Oh, you didn't?
What about indoor plumbing?
You walked outside, and there was a 2-holer. And we had a smokehouse to smoke our meat. We butcher a hog or whatever and do it ourselves.
Besides movies, what did young people and families do for fun?
You made your own movie. The free movie was on Monday night, I think, or Thursday night.
Used to be against the wall in the bank,
Yeah,
but the bank.
there and down by the hardware store.
And
Yeah.
then as you got older, there was the Blue Moon,
Oh,
where they say that was in the late 50s.
yeah. Well, I just can't remember all.
Dale, do you remember the big 4th of July parade?
Oh, yes.
People would come out from Elgin to see it.
And even Chicago.
Chicago, yeah.
It was, and they put on a big fireworks up at the park.
Yeah. And then we have a baseball game at the park later on that day.
Well, that's one thing. We always had sports. In the high school, now, we had maybe 100 students. so maybe there was 50 boys or whatever. We had to hunt up 10 players to play basketball, and you never knew what teacher we had to bribe to say, did he pass?
So what happened to each of you after high school? What happened in your lives?
Well, my life was a little different. I was a pretty good ball player, baseball player. And I got a chance to sign a major league contract. And I played professional ball until Uncle Sam says Korea's here. And that ended that. I think I had a chance to make the majors, but that's by thinking of the good things and not the bad.
You were up for AAA, if I remember right, Dale, weren't you?
The last, yeah, but
You were our hero.
well, it's different than it is now. You see these pitchers, they're all 6'5", 7 foot, and throw 100 miles an hour. We have nobody that like that. We did it finessely. But then after I got out of the service, my dad had a farm, and he says, you can come out here and work and be a partner. And he says, that sounds good to me. And then I got married to my wife, Jackie Click, and we've been married 67 years.
Same one.
Yeah, I guess. But I remember your dad in Port Huron. I don't know how many vehicles I bought from you. I think I still owe you some money.
We had trouble with the one day. Remember the one with the motor?
Yeah, that's right.
We finally got a motor for you.
You know that came right after World War II? And it was one of the first Plymouths made, and the motor was bad. And your dad put a new one in. Or General
With your help, yeah. They didn't want to do it, they wanted us to overhaul. It worked.
And Andy, tell us about your life after high school. What happened?
Well, my father passed away shortly after I got out of high school, and I had secured a job with Borden's in town, but I had to get to the job. I was about 4 miles away, so I checked with the Ford garage, Peterson and Seiler at that time, and I bought a Model A Ford Coupe for $35, and then I found out that it cost about $30 for insurance for it. I got 4 good years service out of it. I was happy with that.
You went into the oil business though, didn't you?
Yeah, I spent about 9 years with Borden, well, about 7 years with Borden's, 2 with the Army. And I could see that without a college education, I had got about as far as I could. And I saw that we could make quite a bit more money peddling Standard Oil gas. So I did for about 40-some years then.
You had a very successful station.
And John?
Well, I didn't go to high school here. I went to Miami Military Academy in Aurora. The priest said I was too adventurous or something to stay in Hampshire. So I went to Miami, and it was a 4-year high school. The last 2 years were college infantry ROTC, and I was pretty fortunate. I was all-state in football and all suburban Chicago in football. And then I went to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, and I didn't take ROTC the first 2 years because high school ROTC took care of the college ROTC. And then I took, in the junior year, I went to ROTC summer camp at Fort Meade, Maryland. And the Korean War ended, supposedly there was a truce. I think it was July 23rd. And they kept arguing it in Pennsylvania Military College there. And they kept us going until August 15th. I was supposed to go to Korea. I was assigned to the one infantry brigade, one that's in Italy now. And I was assigned, I had Mom coming after my car. And all of a sudden they let us go home. And so I finished at Hopkins. As soon as I finished with Hopkins, I went into the Army. But when I was at Hopkins, the Baltimore Orioles came to Baltimore. And the parade, I'll never forget this. Muriel gets tired of talking about this. But as the parade was forming at 29th and Calvert, our fraternity house, me and another guy were standing on the porch. And the Grand Marshal was Richard Nixon. It started to rain. We said, come on in. So he came in the fraternity house, and the walls were fuchsia, it was reddish. He said, my God, what do we got here? And I told him, and he said, you guys in ROTC? He said, yeah. I'll never forget this. He said, you guys knew how to rope and ride, didn't you? I looked at him, I said, sir, I do know that. So no matter what you think of Richard Nixon, he was just a regular guy. So right after I graduated, I ended up